It's hard to believe that we're already more than halfway through Advent, isn't it? It's hard for me to believe because I've been thinking about Advent since like August, and now we're halfway through it. But here we are in week 3 of our Advent series on regifting God's gifts. During the first 2 weeks, as a reminder, we talked about the importance of first receiving God's gifts for ourselves and then reflecting on how they might impact others before we attempt to pass them on. Both of these steps are vital to the process of regifting because they help put us in the right frame of mind. They give us a deeper understanding of the people on either side of the gift, the giver and the receiver. But if we only ever approach regifting as an intellectual exercise, nothing will actually ever happen. So in this third week of Advent, it's time for us to get out of our heads and into the real world. It's time for us to get to work repackaging the gift. Now, in order to understand this step, it might be helpful for us to start by thinking in terms of an actual physical gift, something that you've been given. Let's say that you received a book that you want to share with someone else because it's so good. Of course, you'd start by reading it for yourself, taking it in and fully enjoying it. Next, you do some thinking about who in your life might appreciate it the most. But once you're finally ready to pass it along, you hopefully realize that you can't just use the same wrapping paper that it came in when you received it. That would undermine all the thought, care, and intention that you already put into the process of regifting this book. As a side note, I suppose if you're one of those carefully unwrap, you could reuse it, but if you're like me and you rip it off, no chance. So instead, you carefully rewrap this book, maybe choosing wrapping paper in the new recipient's favorite color, and adding a new bow and a gift tag with their name on it. You repackage it in a way that appeals to the new recipient so that you can make it clear that the gift isn't just an afterthought, but is intended specifically for them. Of course, we don't usually literally wrap gifts from God that we intend to regift. It would be really hard to wrap like, peace or something. But there is an element of presentation that we need to consider. God created humanity to be wonderfully diverse, which means that no two people will see or understand things in exactly the same way. So we can't assume that someone with different life experiences and a different perspective will see or understand the gift in the same way we do. Hopefully that previous step of reflecting has helped to make that clear. If we want to make sure that they can enjoy and appreciate the gift, if we really want it to be a blessing for them, we have to adjust the way that we present it to reflect their concerns, their interests, their wants, their needs. Let's jump back into the Christmas story to see what I mean. In Luke's version, which we read 2 weeks ago, Mary is the very first person to receive knowledge of the Messiah, a precious gift from God. She would have an utterly unique relationship with this gift as Jesus' mother, and Gabriel's presentation to her reflects that. He explains exactly what her particular role will be, how everything will happen, how it will impact her physically, and importantly, he reassures her that despite the difficulties she may anticipate, this is in fact an honor and a blessing from God. But of course, Mary isn't the only one to receive this gift. Matthew tells us that God sends another angel a little bit later to Mary's future husband in order to present him with that exact same gift. Although these two narratives are found in two separate Gospels, it's fortunate for us that tradition has preserved both of them. It provides us with an interesting opportunity to compare the way God's gift is presented to two different people. And while a cursory reading may leave us with the impression that of two very similar presentations, a closer reading reveals that this isn't the case at all. To start with, the angel presents himself to Joseph in a dream instead of the physical manifestation that Mary encounters. We can't know for sure why this is the case, but we can speculate that maybe Joseph had a more skeptical nature and that he needed his rational, waking mind to take a back seat in order for him to fully accept God's gift. The angels also emphasize different aspects of this gift in their appearances to Mary and Joseph based on what was foremost in each of the recipients' minds. Whereas Mary had been concerned about the logistical possibility of her pregnancy, Joseph had been worrying about the social implications. So each of them received a message that reflected those respective issues. And finally, Mary's encounter with the angel was a dialogue. She asked questions. He answered. But Joseph passively received instructions. I don't even think he says a word in this entire passage. Probably because that was what each of them needed in that moment. The gift given to both Mary and Joseph was the same. They were told that they would both be the parents of the long-awaited Messiah. But each of them received it in different packaging. Joseph's needs, responsibilities, and concerns wouldn't be addressed in the same way that Mary's were, but with some new wrapping paper in the form of a different presentation, that very same gift became uniquely relevant and meaningful to him. The way we share God's gifts matters. As we think about which of them we want to regift to others, and hopefully by now, over the past 2 weeks, you've come up with a few ideas, we have to be aware of how we present them. You may have received the good news of God's unconditional love in a traditional worship service, but someone who's been abused by the church wouldn't be able to receive it the same way. They'd need that gift packaged differently, maybe in a one-on-one conversation, or a listening ear, or through consistent demonstrations of care. If you were given the gift of community through your participation in recreational sports, as many people do, you might need to reconsider how you'd share that with someone whose health keeps them bedridden. Maybe you found the gift of joy in your relationship with your kids or grandkids, but you'd have to help someone with family trauma to find it in a different place. The wonderful thing about God's gifts, though, is that they aren't only available to those with the right life circumstances. They aren't restricted to people with a happy family or perfect health or a sense of emotional safety. They're not even limited to people of faith. God's gifts are for everyone. That's what makes Christmas worth celebrating. The promises of hope and salvation that arrive as a child in a manger are absolutely universal. It's just that our ways of experiencing these gifts aren't. So as the people of God, as the hands and feet of Christ in the world, we have a responsibility to get these gifts out to absolutely everyone we can by repackaging them, however many times, however many ways are necessary, with different words, in different places, and through different actions. This isn't calculated marketing. It's effective evangelism. Of course, it's far easier to try and share God's gifts by repeating the exact same patterns in the same ways that are meaningful to us, the same ways we've always done it. But that's exactly how we wind up with languishing ministries and dying church communities. Not because the gifts themselves are no good, but because the packaging isn't meaningful to enough people. We have to put in the hard work to get this part of the regifting process right, because it turns out that easy has never been one of the gifts that God has ever promised to any of us. So for the sake of the news that is always good, for the sake of the message that angels have been proclaiming for centuries, for the sake of the gifts that are too wonderful to keep to ourselves, let's do that hard work. Let's think not about ourselves, but about those out there still searching for a blessing. Let's share God's gifts in a way that draws in the least, the last, and the lost. A way that speaks directly and authentically to them. Make these gifts impossible to ignore or deny by rewrapping them with attention and care. Make it clear that they aren't just our cast-off hand-me-downs, but precious treasures meant specifically for the one who needs them most. Because that's what they are, and that's what God says everyone deserves. Amen.